The year is 1985, and Manhattan pulses with the electric rhythm of unbridled capitalism. Glass towers pierce the skyline like crystal daggers, their surfaces reflecting the golden ambition of an era drunk on success. Wall Street thrums with the heartbeat of America's financial empire, where fortunes are made with the stroke of a pen and destroyed with the ring of a closing bell. In the concrete canyons of Lower Manhattan, two financial dynasties wage an invisible war that has consumed 3 generations. The morning sun casts long shadows between the towering monuments to greed, illuminating the battlefield where billions change hands daily. Montague and Associates occupies the 32nd floor of a gleaming steel tower, its mahogany-paneled offices overlooking the Hudson River. Richard Montague, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, built this empire from nothing, transforming a small brokerage into one of Wall Street's most feared investment houses. His traders work in synchronized chaos, their voices creating a symphony of shouted orders and ringing phones. Computer screens flicker with green numbers that dance like digital flames, each fluctuation representing someone's dream made or destroyed. 6 blocks south, Capulet Securities commands an even more imposing presence. Their marble lobby gleams under crystal chandeliers, while Augustus Capulet, distinguished and ruthless, orchestrates his financial orchestra from a corner office that spans half the 41st floor. The Capulet name adorns philanthropic wings of museums and hospital buildings throughout the city, a testament to wealth accumulated through decades of calculated risk and cutthroat competition. The feud between these houses began in 1962, when both firms competed for the same lucrative government contract. What started as professional rivalry metastasized into personal vendetta when Montague accused Capulet of insider trading, leading to a congressional investigation that nearly destroyed both companies. The charges were never proven, but trust, once shattered, can never be fully repaired. Since then, every merger, every acquisition, every corporate takeover has become a chess match between these titans. Their hatred spills into every corner of their lives. Montague clients are forbidden from Capulet social clubs. Capulet charity galas exclude Montague donors. Their children attend rival prep schools. Their wives shop at competing boutiques. Even their housekeepers whisper warnings about the other family's poison. On this particular October morning, as yellow taxis weave through streets still slick with pre-dawn rain, Romeo Montague emerges from his penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park. At 23, he possesses his father's sharp intellect, but lacks the older man's hardened cynicism. His tailored Armani suit fits perfectly over an athletic frame built from morning runs through the park and weekend tennis at the club. Dark hair catches the autumn light as he pauses on his building steps, breathing in the crisp air that carries hints of changing leaves and distant exhaust. Romeo graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Business School just 18 months ago, his thesis on emerging market derivatives earning praise from professors who now serve as consultants to his father's firm. Yet despite his academic brilliance and natural charisma, something essential feels missing from his carefully constructed life. The numbers that thrill his colleagues seem cold and lifeless to him. The deals that generate millions feel hollow, lacking any deeper purpose beyond accumulation. His silver BMW cuts through morning traffic with practiced ease, weaving between delivery trucks and early commuters. The radio crackles with market reports and economic forecasts, but Romeo's mind drifts elsewhere. Last night's society party at the plaza replays in his memory. The same faces, the same conversations, the same empty laughter echoing off marble walls. Beautiful women competed for his attention with calculating smiles, their interest clearly focused on his surname, rather than anything genuine about him. The trading floor of Montague and Associates erupts with its usual morning chaos as Romeo arrives. Dozens of young men in identical suits bark orders into phones while computer screens paint their faces green and red. The air thrums with testosterone and caffeine, punctuated by the constant chatter of ticker tape machines. This is the engine room of American capitalism, where dreams transform into data points, and human ambition reduces to profit margins. Benvolio Montague, Romeo's cousin and closest confidant, notices his melancholy immediately. At 25, Benvolio serves as the firm's head of risk assessment, his cautious nature perfectly suited to analyzing the dangerous gambles that fuel their industry. His conservative Brooks Brothers suit contrasts sharply with Romeo's Italian tailoring, reflecting a personality that values stability over flash. Benvolio approaches through the maze of trading desks, his concerned expression cutting through the morning chaos. "You look like death warmed over, cousin," Benvolio observes, settling into the leather chair beside Romeo's corner office desk. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, the Statue of Liberty stands distant and green against the harbor, a symbol of freedom that feels mockingly out of reach. Another sleepless night contemplating the emptiness of material wealth? Romeo loosens his silk tie, already feeling suffocated by the day ahead. His mahogany desk, inherited from his grandfather, bears the weight of contracts worth more money than most people see in lifetimes. Yet these documents feel like chains, binding him to a destiny he never chose. "I attended the Ashworth engagement party last evening," he replies, his voice carrying traces of inherited privilege and genuine weariness. 200 of Manhattan's finest, celebrating the merger of two pharmaceutical fortunes. The champagne cost more per bottle than most families spend on groceries in a month. The irony isn't lost on either of them. Romeo Montague, heir to one of Wall Street's greatest fortunes, yearns for something his money cannot purchase: authentic connection, genuine purpose, love unmarked by calculation. His trust fund alone generates more daily interest than most executives earn annually, yet he feels spiritually bankrupt. Mercutio Valenti arrives like a whirlwind of expensive cologne and barely contained energy. The son of Italian construction magnates, he serves as the unofficial bridge between old money and new, his family's concrete empire having built half of Manhattan's newest skyscrapers. His charcoal Valentino suit fits like liquid silk over a frame kept trim by cocaine and nervous energy. Gold jewelry catches the morning light as he gestures dramatically, his presence filling the office with manic charisma. "Gentlemen," Mercutio announces, spreading his arms wide as if conducting an invisible orchestra, "the city awaits our conquest, and yet you sit here looking like mourners at a funeral. Romeo, my friend, your melancholy is becoming legendary. The secretaries whisper that you're pining for some mysterious woman who doesn't exist." Romeo manages a weak smile. Mercutio's friendship provides one of the few genuine pleasures in his structured existence, though his friend's increasingly frequent powder room visits worry him. The cocaine epidemic sweeping through Wall Street's young elite claims new casualties weekly, transforming ambitious professionals into hollow-eyed shadows chasing artificial highs. "Perhaps she doesn't exist," Romeo admits, gazing out at the Hudson River where cargo ships carry goods from around the world. "Perhaps I'm chasing a phantom, some impossible ideal of connection in a world built entirely on transaction." Mercutio laughs, the sound sharp and brittle. "Philosophy before noon? You're worse than I thought. Listen, there's a charity auction tonight at the Waldorf. Some cause involving endangered butterflies or homeless children, I can't remember which. Half of Manhattan's eligible daughters will be there, draped in diamonds, and desperate for husbands with good credit ratings." Benvolio frowns, his conservative instincts sensing danger. "The Capulet Foundation sponsors that auction. You know, father forbids any contact with their people. The restraining order from that courtroom incident last year still stands. The mention of their enemies sends a chill through the office. The Capulet name represents everything forbidden, dangerous, and seductive about their world. Stories of Augustus Capulet's ruthlessness are whispered in every trading house, his methods for destroying competitors legendary in their efficiency and cruelty. Yet the man maintains an impeccable public image, his charity work and cultural patronage painting him as Manhattan's most distinguished citizen." Mercutio's eyes glitter with mischievous intent. "Precisely why we must attend. Think of it as reconnaissance. Know your enemy and all that. Besides, they'll never recognize us in formal wear. These society events are so crowded with peacocks, we'll blend into the flock perfectly." Romeo finds himself intrigued despite his better judgment. The prospect of infiltrating Capulet territory appeals to some rebellious part of his nature that chafes against his prescribed role. Perhaps proximity to danger might awaken something within his carefully controlled existence. Outside their windows, the city pulses with its eternal rhythm of ambition and desire. Lunch crowds begin gathering on sidewalks below, a river of humanity flowing between the concrete monuments to capitalism. Steam rises from manholes like urban incense, while the distant sound of construction creates a percussive soundtrack to Manhattan's perpetual transformation. The morning sun climbs higher, burning through the last wisps of fog that cling to the East River. In this golden light, the city appears almost beautiful, its harsh edges softened by atmospheric magic. Yet beneath this romantic veneer lurks the brutal reality of a world where everything has a price, and love itself becomes another commodity to be bought, sold, and traded. Across the financial district, in the marble halls of Capulet Securities, another drama unfolds with equal intensity. Juliet Capulet stands before the floor-to-ceiling windows of her father's corner office, watching the ant-like figures scurrying through Wall Street's concrete valleys 41 floors below. At 19, she possesses a sharp intelligence that both delights and terrifies her father, her mind capable of analyzing complex derivatives and foreign exchange fluctuations with frightening precision. Her Chanel suit, pearl gray with subtle gold threading, reflects her position as crown princess of the Capulet Empire. Yet beneath this polished exterior burns a restless spirit that yearns for something beyond the gilded cage of predetermined destiny. Her dark hair, swept into an elegant chignon, frames features that combine her mother's patrician beauty with her father's steely determination. The Pemberton acquisition files, Miss Capulet, announces her assistant, a nervous young man whose Harvard MBA cannot mask his intimidation at working so closely with Manhattan royalty. The documents represent months of careful maneuvering, a hostile takeover that will add another $100 million to the family fortune while eliminating a troublesome competitor. Augustus Capulet enters with the measured stride of a man accustomed to commanding rooms filled with powerful people. His silver hair gleams under the office's crystal chandeliers, while his Savile Row suit speaks of wealth so established it need not announce itself. At 58, he has transformed the family investment house into a financial juggernaut that rivals the Federal Reserve in its influence over American markets. "Juliet, darling," he says, his voice carrying the cultured tones of old money and Ivy League education. "I trust you've reviewed the Morrison portfolio analysis. Your insights proved remarkably astute during yesterday's partners' meeting." She turns from the window, her expression mixing dutiful affection with barely concealed frustration. "The Morrison account is hemorrhaging money through poorly diversified mutual funds. Any first-year analyst could identify the problem. Yet you praise me for stating the obvious, while Paris Escalas takes credit for strategies I developed." Paris Escalas, heir to another old money dynasty and Juliet's intended fiancé, represents everything her father desires in a son-in-law. Handsome in a conventional way, impeccably educated at Princeton, and possessed of a trust fund that would make Croesus envious, he embodies the perfect merger of compatible bloodlines. Yet his presence fills Juliet with a profound sense of suffocation, as if her future has been written in contract language that leaves no room for personal desire. Augustus crosses to his daughter, placing a paternal hand on her shoulder. "Paris brings substantial assets to our family, not merely financial but social and political. His uncle serves on the Federal Reserve Board, his cousins control 3 major newspapers. Marriage isn't simply about personal preference, child. It's about strategic alliance." The word marriage hangs in the air like expensive perfume, beautiful but ultimately artificial. Juliet has known since childhood that her romantic destiny would be determined by spreadsheets rather than sentiment. Yet the reality feels increasingly oppressive as her 20th birthday approaches. The engagement announcement, scheduled for tonight's charity auction, will seal her fate with all the finality of a signed contract. Mrs. Capulet appears in the doorway, her designer dress and perfect makeup unable to disguise the emptiness behind her eyes. Years of society parties and pharmaceutical prescriptions have left her a beautiful shell, floating through life on a cloud of Valium and white wine. "Juliet, darling, the stylists are waiting. Tonight's auction requires absolute perfection. Every camera in the city will capture your engagement announcement. The charity auction at the Waldorf Astoria promises to be the social event of the season. Manhattan's elite will gather under crystal chandeliers to bid ridiculous sums on items they don't need, all in service of causes they barely understand. Yet these gatherings serve a deeper purpose, reinforcing the invisible networks that truly control American power. Business deals worth billions are negotiated over champagne and caviar, while marriages that will reshape family dynasties are arranged between dinner courses." Juliet follows her mother toward the elevator, her heels clicking against marble floors that reflect their passage like a mirror. The building's lobby bustles with activity, as traders and analysts rush toward their own destinies, their faces bright with the particular intensity that comes from gambling with other people's money. Outside, yellow taxis navigate between limousines, while street vendors sell newspapers announcing the latest corporate mergers and federal investigations. The afternoon sun casts long shadows through Manhattan's concrete canyons, painting the city in shades of gold and amber that make even its harsh realities appear romantic. Somewhere in this urban labyrinth, forces are aligning that will transform two young lives forever, though neither Romeo nor Juliet yet suspects that destiny has marked them for a collision that will shake the foundations of their feuding houses. As evening approaches, the city prepares for another night of excess and ambition. The Waldorf Astoria's ballroom staff arranges flowers flown in from Colombia while musicians tune instruments that will provide soundtrack to Manhattan's eternal dance of power and seduction. Tonight, in a room filled with enemies masquerading as friends, two hearts will discover each other across the gulf that separates their warring families, setting in motion events that will prove love stronger than hate and passion more powerful than profit. The Waldorf Astoria transforms into a glittering temple of excess as Manhattan's financial elite converge for the evening's charity auction. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors, while white-gloved waiters circulate with silver trays of champagne that costs more per bottle than most monthly salaries. The ballroom pulses with the soft jazz of a 10-piece orchestra, their music weaving between conversations conducted in hushed tones that somehow manage to negotiate million-dollar deals over cocktail napkins. Women draped in designer gowns and inherited jewelry move like exotic birds through the crowd, their conversations punctuated by the gentle chiming of diamond bracelets and pearl necklaces. Men in midnight black tuxedos cluster around the auction display cases, where priceless artifacts and vacation packages to private Caribbean islands await the highest bidders. The air itself seems to shimmer with wealth and ambition, thick as smoke from Cuban cigars being enjoyed on the hotel's private terrace. Romeo adjusts his bow tie nervously as he, Benvolio, and Mercutio approach the ballroom's entrance. Their formal wear serves as perfect camouflage among Manhattan's peacock elite, though Romeo's heart pounds with the knowledge that they're infiltrating enemy territory. The massive guest list provides anonymity, but discovery would mean more than simple embarrassment. It could reignite the corporate warfare that has consumed both families for decades. Remember, Benvolio whispers, his voice barely audible above the orchestral music. We observe from the periphery, make no contact with Capulet family members, and leave before midnight. Father's spies undoubtedly patrol this gathering, and our presence here violates every instruction we've ever received. Mercutio laughs softly, his eyes already scanning the crowd for familiar faces and potential conquests. His cocaine habit has sharpened his senses to an almost supernatural degree, making colors more vivid and sounds more intense. Relax, cousin. In a crowd this size, we're merely 3 more wolves among the sheep. Besides, I spotted at least 6 foreign ministers, 4 Supreme Court justices, and half the Senate Finance Committee. Any scandal tonight will have far more interesting targets than a few wayward investment bankers. The ballroom's opulence overwhelms the senses with its calculated grandeur. Hand-painted murals depicting scenes from Greek mythology cover the vaulted ceiling, while massive arrangements of white orchids and red roses create islands of natural beauty among the artificial splendor. Tables draped in silk cloths display the evening's auction items, a Picasso sketch, keys to a Maserati, diamond earrings once worn by European royalty, and a week aboard a yacht moored in Monte Carlo harbor. Augustus Capulet holds court near the auction podium, surrounded by a constellation of admirers and supplicants. His presence commands the room's attention even when he's not speaking, his silver hair and distinguished bearing marking him as natural aristocracy in a crowd of nouveau riche pretenders. Tonight he plays the gracious host and generous philanthropist, though everyone present understands the ruthless calculation behind his public charity. Ladies and gentlemen, announces the evening's master of ceremonies, his amplified voice cutting through the cocktail chatter. Welcome to the 13th Annual Capulet Foundation Charity Auction. Tonight's proceeds will benefit the Children's Hospital of Manhattan, ensuring that young lives receive the medical care they deserve regardless of their family's financial circumstances. The irony isn't lost on anyone present. These same individuals spend more on tonight's champagne than most families earn in years, yet they gather to celebrate their generosity toward children whose poverty results directly from the economic policies they advocate. Still, the cause provides perfect cover for an evening of competitive spending and social positioning. Romeo finds himself drawn toward the auction display, though he maintains careful distance from the Capulet family cluster. A Renaissance painting catches his attention, a Madonna and Child whose serene expression seems to mock the surrounding excess. The artist captured something eternal and pure, untouched by the commercial calculations that define every relationship in this room. Magnificent, isn't it? The voice startles him from his contemplation. A young woman approaches from his left, her presence somehow commanding attention despite her attempts at modesty. She wears a simple black evening gown that emphasizes her natural grace rather than displaying wealth, though the subtle perfection of its cut suggests expense beyond calculation. Her dark hair frames features that combine intelligence with an almost heartbreaking vulnerability. Romeo turns toward the stranger, and their eyes meet across the space that separates them. In that instant, the ballroom's chaos recedes to a distant murmur. The orchestra's music becomes a soundtrack to something profound and dangerous. Time itself seems to slow, as two souls recognize each other across the artificial barriers that define their world. Neither speaks for a long moment, both sensing that words will shatter the perfect tension of this unexpected encounter. Around them, Manhattan's elite continue their eternal dance of power and seduction, unaware that destiny has just altered the trajectory of two young lives forever. The chandeliers above cast shifting patterns of light and shadow across their faces, while the distant sound of the auction's opening bids creates a percussive counterpoint to their silent communion. In this moment, suspended between heartbeats, Romeo Montague and Juliet Capulet stand on the precipice of a love that will challenge everything they've been taught to believe about loyalty, family, and the price of happiness. The artist understood something that escapes most people, Juliet continues, her voice carrying a subtle tremor that betrays the impact of Romeo's presence. True beauty exists independent of market value. This Madonna's worth cannot be calculated in dollars or Deutschmarks. Her value lies in the emotion she evokes, the peace she offers to troubled hearts. Romeo steps closer, drawn by the unexpected depth in her observation. In a room filled with people who measure everything by profit margins and quarterly returns, her words strike him like lightning, illuminating a dark landscape. "You speak as someone who understands the difference between price and worth," he replies, his voice barely above a whisper. "In my experience, that wisdom is rarer than the painting itself." Their conversation unfolds against the backdrop of Manhattan's most exclusive gathering. Around them, deals worth hundreds of millions are negotiated over champagne flutes, while marriages between financial dynasties are arranged with the casual efficiency of stock trades. Yet Romeo and Juliet exist in a bubble of perfect isolation, their attention focused entirely on each other despite the chaos surrounding them. "I'm Romeo," he offers, extending his hand in a gesture that feels both formal and intimate. The moment their skin touches, electricity courses through both of them, a connection so immediate and powerful that it transcends rational explanation. Her hand fits perfectly in his, as if crafted by divine design specifically for this encounter. "Juliet," she responds, her dark eyes reflecting the chandelier light, like stars in a midnight sky. Neither provides a surname, both unconsciously avoiding the revelation that would shatter this perfect moment. In the anonymity of first names, they can exist as simply two people drawn together by forces beyond their understanding or control. The auction continues around them with theatrical flair. Augustus Capulet takes the podium to present the evening's first lot, a week aboard his personal yacht, complete with crew and access to private beaches in the Bahamas. Bidding opens at $50,000 and quickly escalates as Manhattan's elite compete for the privilege of spending their vacation on enemy property. "Ladies and gentlemen," Augustus announces, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to commanding attention from world leaders, "this magnificent vessel has hosted 3 foreign presidents and countless celebrities. The week includes full catering, water sports equipment, and access to my private wine collection, featuring bottles that Napoleon himself once enjoyed." Romeo barely registers his enemy's voice, his attention consumed by Juliet's presence. They drift toward a quieter corner of the ballroom, near French doors that open onto a terrace overlooking the city's glittering skyline. The orchestra's music follows them like a benediction, while the distant sounds of bidding create a rhythmic backdrop to their deepening conversation. "Do you ever feel trapped by other people's expectations?" Juliet asks, her question carrying weight far beyond casual conversation. "As if your life has been written by committee, with no room for personal desire or individual choice?" Her words resonate in Romeo's soul with painful accuracy. "Every morning I wake up in a penthouse I never chose, dress in suits selected by stylists I never met, and attend meetings about acquisitions that hold no interest for me. My father believes he's giving me the world, but sometimes I feel like I'm suffocating in golden chains. They lean against the terrace railing, the October air cool against their skin while Manhattan spreads below them like a carpet of diamonds. Yellow taxi lights trace rivers of movement through the urban canyons, while neon signs advertise products and dreams to late-night wanderers. The city pulses with eternal energy, indifferent to the human dramas playing out within its concrete embrace. "I'm engaged to be married," Juliet confesses, the words falling between them like stones into still water. "The announcement will be made tonight, to a man I respect but do not love. My father believes this union will strengthen our family's position, secure our future for generations to come." Romeo's heart contracts at her revelation, though he recognizes the familiar pattern of dynastic marriage that governs their social stratum. "And what do you believe?" "I believe that love should be more than a merger," she whispers, turning to face him fully. "I believe that two hearts should choose each other freely, without consideration of stock portfolios or family connections. I believe that what's happening between us right now is worth more than all the gold in Fort Knox." Their second kiss happens naturally, inevitably, as if choreographed by forces beyond human control. In that moment of perfect connection, the ballroom's noise fades to nothing. The auction's frantic energy recedes to a distant murmur. Even the city's eternal soundtrack becomes mere background to the symphony playing in their joined hearts. Neither notices Mercutio searching the crowd with increasingly frantic gestures, his cocaine-sharpened paranoia sensing danger in their extended absence. Benvolio checks his gold Rolex nervously, calculating the risks of their continued presence in enemy territory. Paris Escalus approaches Augustus Capulet with the confident stride of a man about to claim his prize, unaware that his intended bride has just discovered something that will challenge every assumption about duty, love, and the price of happiness. The chandeliers above cast shifting shadows across the terrace as Romeo and Juliet hold each other in perfect stillness, both sensing that this moment represents a crossroads from which there can be no return. Tomorrow will bring consequences, explanations, and the brutal reality of their feuding families. But tonight, in this suspended instant between heartbeats, they exist in a world where love conquers all obstacles, and two souls can recognize their perfect match across any divide. Inside the ballroom, Paris Escalus straightens his platinum cufflinks and approaches Augustus Capulet with the confidence of a man claiming his inheritance. His tuxedo, hand-tailored in London's finest shops, speaks of wealth so established it requires no advertisement. At 28, he possesses the kind of patrician handsomeness that graces magazine covers and society pages. His features sharp enough to cut glass, and cold enough to freeze champagne. "Augustus, my friend," Paris declares, his voice carrying the entitled tone of someone who has never been denied anything he desired. "I believe the moment has arrived for our announcement. The crowd is perfectly primed, the media representatives are in position, and Juliet looks absolutely radiant tonight." Augustus nods approvingly, his calculating mind already envisioning the headlines that will dominate tomorrow's financial pages. The merger of Capulet and Escalus fortunes will create a financial superpower capable of challenging even the Federal Reserve's influence over American markets. More importantly, it will provide the capital necessary to finally destroy the Montague Empire once and for all. Indeed, Augustus agrees, scanning the crowd for his daughter. "Where is Juliet? I saw her near the auction display a few minutes ago, but she seems to have vanished into the crowd." Meanwhile, on the moonlit terrace, Romeo and Juliet exist in a bubble of perfect intimacy that makes the surrounding world seem like a distant dream. The city's lights twinkle below them like earthbound stars, while the cool October breeze carries the scent of Central Park's autumn leaves mixed with the urban perfume of exhaust and ambition. "I need to know your name," Romeo whispers, his hands framing her face with infinite tenderness. "Not just the beautiful syllables you've shared, but everything about you. Your dreams, your fears, the thoughts that occupy your mind when you believe no one is watching." Juliet's heart races with the knowledge that truth will shatter their perfect moment. Yet deception feels impossible in the face of such genuine connection. "I am Juliet Capulet," she breathes, watching his expression transform from adoration to shock to something approaching despair. The name hits Romeo like a physical blow, stealing the breath from his lungs and causing his hands to fall away from her face. Capulet. The enemy. The forbidden fruit that will poison everything pure about this encounter. Yet, even as his rational mind processes the impossibility of their situation, his heart refuses to retreat from the connection they've discovered. "And you?" Juliet asks, though the growing terror in her eyes suggests she's already guessing the truth. "Romeo Montague," he admits, the words falling between them like a death sentence. "Son of your father's greatest enemy, heir to everything you've been taught to despise." They stand frozen in mutual recognition of the catastrophe they've stumbled into. Around them, the city continues its eternal dance of ambition and desire, indifferent to the tragedy unfolding on this small terrace high above its concrete valleys. The orchestra's music drifts through the French doors like a funeral march, while the distant sounds of the charity auction create a percussion of impending doom. "This is impossible," Juliet whispers, though she makes no move to leave his presence. "Our families would rather see us dead than together. The restraining orders alone would land us both in federal court. My father would disown me. Your father would have you committed to a psychiatric facility." Romeo steps closer despite the rational voice screaming warnings in his head. "Then we'll find a way around them. There must be some path through this maze of hatred and tradition. Love this powerful cannot simply be denied or destroyed by corporate bylaws and family grudges." Through the ballroom's crystal windows, they see Augustus Capulet conferring urgently with Paris Aeschylus, both men scanning the crowd with increasing agitation. Benvolio appears near the terrace doors, his conservative face creased with worry as he searches for his missing cousin. Mercutio weaves through the crowd like a man possessed, his cocaine-fueled paranoia finally justified by genuine danger. "They're looking for us," Juliet observes, her voice carrying the weight of inevitability. "In moments, this fairy tale will collapse into the brutal reality of our feuding houses. My engagement will be announced. Your family will be blamed for disrupting it. And the corporate warfare will escalate beyond anything we've seen before." The ballroom's grand clock chimes 11 times, each note reverberating through their hearts like a countdown to execution. Romeo takes her hands in his, memorizing the feel of her skin against his palms. "Then we have until midnight to find a solution. Can you meet me tomorrow? Somewhere private, away from the surveillance and suspicion that surrounds both our families?" Juliet nods without hesitation, her heart overruling every rational objection her mind can produce. The Cathedral of St. John the Divine. At noon. It's the only place in Manhattan where neither of our families holds influence, where we might speak freely without fear of discovery. They kiss once more, desperately this time, as if trying to compress a lifetime of love into a single moment of connection. The taste of champagne and possibility mingles on their lips, while the city's lights blur into abstract patterns of hope and longing. "Miss Capulet," her mother's voice cuts through the night air like a blade, sharp with barely concealed panic. "Your father requires your immediate presence." The announcement cannot wait any longer. Romeo vanishes into the shadows of the hotel's architectural details, his black tuxedo providing perfect camouflage against the building's dark stone. Juliet smooths her evening gown and assumes the mask of dutiful daughter, though her heart pounds with the rhythm of rebellion and newfound love. As she returns to face her destiny, neither realizes that this night has set in motion events that will challenge the foundations of Manhattan's financial empire, proving that some forces are more powerful than money, more enduring than hatred, and more dangerous than the combined might of Wall Street's most ruthless dynasties. The morning after the charity auction dawns gray and unforgiving over Manhattan, its leaden sky reflecting the storm clouds gathering around the Capulet and Montague empires. The New York Times financial section screams the headline across its front page: "Capulet Aeschylus merger announced. Wall Street power couple to unite dynasties." Below the bold letters, a photograph captures the moment of triumph. Augustus Capulet, raising a champagne flute beside Paris Aeschylus, while a notably absent Juliet is mentioned as being overcome with emotion during the announcement. In his Central Park penthouse, Romeo stares at the newspaper with hollow eyes, the coffee growing cold in his hand as reality crashes over him like a tidal wave. The business section details the financial implications of the engagement. A combined portfolio worth over $3 billion, controlling interests in 12 Fortune 500 companies, and enough political influence to reshape federal economic policy. What the articles cannot capture is the human cost, a young woman's heart sacrificed on the altar of corporate ambition. The telephone rings incessantly, its shrill tone cutting through the apartment's oppressive silence. Reporters seek quotes about the most important merger in Wall Street history, while competitors probe for inside information about the Capulet family's expanding influence. Romeo lets the machine collect their hungry voices, each message a reminder of the cage closing around the woman he loves. Benvolio arrives with the morning's intelligence gathered from their network of informants throughout the financial district. His usually composed demeanor shows cracks of genuine concern as he spreads additional newspapers across Romeo's mahogany dining table. The Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, and New York Post all lead with variations of the same story, each publication spinning the engagement as either financial genius or dangerous monopolization. The SEC has already announced a preliminary investigation, Benvolio reports, his voice tight with worry. They're concerned about antitrust violations, market manipulation, and the concentration of too much power in too few hands. Father received 3 calls before dawn from federal regulators demanding explanations for last night's activities. Romeo barely processes his cousin's words, his mind consumed by images of Juliet trapped in a marriage that will destroy her spirit. The cathedral meeting looms like a lifeline in the storm, their only chance to find some path through the labyrinth of family hatred and corporate intrigue. Yet even as hope flickers in his heart, logic whispers the brutal truth. Love cannot survive in a world where everything has a price, and some debts can only be paid in blood. Across the city, in the marble halls of Capulet Securities, Juliet sits in her father's office like a prisoner awaiting sentence. The engagement announcement has triggered a media frenzy that transforms her from private individual into public commodity. Photographers camp outside the building's entrance, while television crews broadcast live updates about the merger of the century. Her every movement will now be scrutinized, analyzed, and reduced to market implications. The engagement party is scheduled for this Saturday at the Plaza, Augustus declares, his voice carrying the satisfaction of a general who has just conquered enemy territory. 200 guests, including the mayor, 3 federal judges, and the entire board of the New York Stock Exchange. This celebration will announce to the world that the Capulet dynasty has entered a new era of unprecedented power. Mrs. Capulet floats through the office on her usual cloud of prescription medication and white wine, her designer dress rustling like autumn leaves as she approaches her daughter. Darling, the wedding planners are waiting downstairs. We have so many decisions to make. Flowers, music, the guest list alone will require weeks of careful consideration. This will be the social event of the decade. Juliet nods mechanically, playing the role of dutiful daughter while her heart screams in rebellion. Every detail of the approaching wedding feels like another chain binding her to a destiny she never chose. The irony cuts deeply, surrounded by more wealth than most nations possess, yet feeling utterly powerless to control her own fate. The morning passes in a blur of meetings with designers, caterers, and photographers, each professional treating her like a beautiful doll to be dressed and positioned for maximum visual impact. The wedding dress alone costs more than most families earn in years, its hand-sewn pearls and Belgian lace creating a prison of silk and tradition. Yet all Juliet can think about is the cathedral meeting, the promise of seeing Romeo's face again, the desperate hope that love might find a way to triumph over the forces arrayed against them. At 11:30 she excuses herself for a doctor's appointment, her mother too medicated to question the obvious lie. The limousine carries her through Manhattan's concrete canyons toward the cathedral, past the homeless shelters and soup kitchens that exist in the shadows of Wall Street's gleaming towers. The contrast strikes her with painful clarity. In a world of such abundance, why must love be the one thing that remains scarce? The Cathedral of St. John the Divine rises from Morningside Heights, like a medieval fortress transplanted to modern times. Its Gothic spires pierce the gray sky, while stone gargoyles stand eternal watch over the city's sins. Here, among the flying buttresses and stained glass windows, the petty concerns of financial empire seem almost insignificant compared to the eternal questions of faith, love, and human purpose. Romeo waits in a side chapel, his presence both comforting and devastating. The morning light filtering through ancient glass paints rainbow patterns across his face, while the cathedral's vast silence provides sanctuary from the chaos consuming their lives. When their eyes meet across the sacred space, the world reduces to this single moment of perfect understanding. Two souls recognizing their destiny despite every rational argument against it. In the hushed sanctuary of the cathedral's Lady Chapel, Romeo and Juliet find themselves surrounded by centuries of prayers and promises made by lovers facing impossible odds. Votive candles flicker like tiny stars against the ancient stone, their warm light creating an intimate cocoon within the vast sacred space. The distant sound of Manhattan's traffic reduces to a whisper, while the cathedral's Gothic arches seem to stretch toward heaven itself, as if offering divine intervention for their earthly crisis. I've been awake since dawn, reading every newspaper account of your engagement, Romeo confesses, his voice echoing softly off the stone walls. They describe it as a financial triumph, a merger that will reshape American capitalism. Yet all I see is the woman I love being sold to secure a business alliance. Juliet moves closer, her heels clicking against the worn marble floors that have witnessed countless confessions of love and despair. The morning brought wedding planners and photographers, each treating me like a commodity to be packaged and displayed. My mother discussed the ceremony as if planning a corporate presentation, while my father calculated the political advantages of each potential guest. The stained glass windows above them tell stories of saints and martyrs, men and women who chose love and faith over worldly power. Their jewel-toned faces seem to observe this modern romance with compassionate understanding, as if recognizing the eternal nature of hearts that refuse to be governed by logic or law. There must be a way, Romeo insists, taking her hands in his with desperate intensity. People disappear from New York every day. They change their names, start new lives in California or Europe. My trust fund alone contains enough money to support us anywhere in the world. We could be on a plane to Paris before evening, married in a chapel overlooking the Seine by tomorrow night. Juliet's heart races at the fantasy he paints, the vision of freedom from the golden chains that bind them both. Yet even as she yearns for escape, the practical realities of their situation assert themselves with crushing weight. They would find us, she whispers, her voice heavy with the knowledge of their family's resources. My father employs private investigators, federal agents, even foreign intelligence operatives. Running would only delay the inevitable confrontation. The cathedral's ancient stones have absorbed centuries of human anguish, and now they seem to press down upon the young lovers with the weight of all that suffering. Outside, the gray October sky threatens rain, while inside, shadows deepen as clouds obscure the sun. The votive candles burn lower, their wax pooling like tears on brass holders worn smooth by countless hands. Then we face them, Romeo declares with sudden fierce determination. We tell both families the truth, that love has found a way across their manufactured hatred, that their children refuse to perpetuate this cycle of corporate vengeance. Perhaps they'll surprise us with understanding, with recognition that their feud has already cost too much. Before Juliet can respond to his naive optimism, footsteps echo through the cathedral's nave, sharp and purposeful against the sacred silence. Tybalt Capulet appears in the chapel entrance like an avenging angel, his expensive suit unable to disguise the violent energy radiating from his lean frame. At 26, Juliet's cousin has earned a reputation as the family enforcer, the man who handles problems that cannot be solved through legal channels or financial pressure. Juliet. Tybalt's voice cuts through the chapel's peace like a blade through silk. Your absence from the office has been noted. Father sent me to ensure your safety, given the sensitive nature of recent developments. His pale eyes fix on Romeo with instant recognition and barely contained rage. The restraining orders, corporate warfare, and decades of accumulated hatred coalesce in that single glance, transforming the sacred space into a battlefield where old wounds refuse to heal. A Montague, Tybalt continues, his hand moving instinctively toward the concealed weapon that all family enforcers carry. In a cathedral, defiling sacred ground with his presence. Did you think your family's corruption wouldn't eventually surface? Did you imagine we wouldn't discover this pathetic attempt at espionage? Romeo steps between Tybalt and Juliet, his own hands clenched into fists despite the hopelessness of physical confrontation. This isn't espionage, Capulet. This is two people who found each other despite every obstacle your families have constructed. Your cousin and I have discovered something that transcends your corporate hatred. Something worth fighting for. The cathedral's silence becomes oppressive, heavy with the weight of impending violence. Even the votive candles seem to flicker more urgently, as if sensing the desecration about to unfold in this holy place. Outside, the threatened rain begins to fall, pattering against ancient glass windows like tears shed by angels witnessing human folly. Love? Tybalt laughs, the sound harsh and ugly in the sacred space. You speak of love while your family schemes to destroy everything we've built. The Pemberton acquisition, the Morrison portfolio manipulation, the federal investigation that threatens to unravel decades of careful work, all Montague machinations designed to bankrupt us while pretending innocence. Juliet finds her voice, though it trembles with fear and defiance. Tybalt, please. This isn't what you think. Romeo has nothing to do with corporate strategy or business rivalry. We met by chance, spoke as individuals, rather than representatives of feuding dynasties. Chance? Tybalt's pale eyes glitter with cold fury. Nothing involving a Montague happens by chance, cousin. This seduction is calculated, designed to compromise you and through you, our entire family. The engagement announcement last night probably sent them into panic. They needed an emergency strategy to disrupt the merger. The accusation hangs in the air between them like poison, transforming their pure love into something sordid and manipulative. Romeo feels the words like physical blows, each syllable designed to destroy the fragile trust he and Juliet have built in their brief time together. The cathedral's ancient stones seem to tremble with the force of accumulated hatred as Tybalt advances, his Italian leather shoes clicking against marble floors stained with centuries of prayer and penitence. The sacred space, meant to offer sanctuary from worldly violence, transforms into an arena where old wounds demand fresh blood. Rain patters harder against the stained glass windows, as if heaven itself weeps for what is about to unfold. You want to know about Montague schemes? Tybalt hisses, his voice echoing off Gothic arches like a serpent's whisper. 3 weeks ago, your father's firm shorted our pharmaceutical stocks just hours before the FDA announced their investigation. Coincidence? Yesterday, our Swiss accounts were frozen pending review by federal regulators who somehow obtained confidential information about our offshore investments. Romeo's face pales as the accusations mount, each charge adding weight to the growing certainty that their love story has become entangled in corporate warfare. Neither of them understands. I know nothing about my father's business strategies, he protests, though his voice lacks conviction. My involvement with Juliet has nothing to do with market manipulation or insider trading. Liar. Tybalt's hand slides inside his jacket, his fingers closing around the pearl handle of a pistol that cost more than most people's cars. In the shadows between columns, where medieval architects carved demons and angels in eternal struggle, modern evil prepares to assert its dominance over love and innocence. Juliet steps forward desperately, her evening dress rustling like autumn leaves as she positions herself between the two men who represent the opposing forces tearing her heart apart. Cousin, I beg you to listen with reason, rather than rage. Romeo speaks the truth. Our connection exists independent of family business or corporate strategy. We met by accident, spoke as individuals, discovered something pure in a world corrupted by greed and ambition. The cathedral's vast nave amplifies her words, sending them spiraling toward the vaulted ceiling where stone saints and martyrs observe this modern tragedy with expressions of eternal compassion. Yet even divine intervention seems powerless against the momentum of hatred that has consumed 3 generations of American financial royalty. Pure? Tybalt's laugh echoes like gunfire off the ancient stones. Nothing involving a Montague has been pure since their family crawled out of whatever gutter spawned them. This seduction is business, Juliet, calculated manipulation designed to compromise our merger, destroy your engagement, and bankrupt everything our grandfather built. Outside the cathedral, the October storm intensifies, sending sheets of rain against windows that have weathered 5 centuries of New York seasons. The city beyond continues its eternal dance of ambition and desire, indifferent to the human drama playing out in this small corner of sanctuary. Yellow taxis navigate flooding streets, while pedestrians huddle under umbrellas, all pursuing their individual destinies without awareness that fate is about to claim new victims. Romeo's patience finally snaps under the weight of accusation and injured pride. You speak of family honor while threatening violence in a house of God, he declares, his voice gaining strength from righteous anger. Your cousin and I have found something worth preserving in this wasteland of corporate hatred. If you can't recognize love when it stands before you, then you're already dead inside. The words hit Tybalt like physical blows, each syllable confirming his worst suspicions about Montague manipulation and emotional warfare. His hand tightens on the concealed weapon, while his pale eyes burn with the accumulated fury of decades spent watching his family's enemies prosper and multiply. Love? he snarls, taking another step forward. "I'll show you what Montague love is worth in the real world." The gun appears in his hand like a magician's trick, its chrome surface reflecting the cathedral's votive candles in patterns of light and shadow. The barrel points steadily at Romeo's chest, while Tybalt's finger finds the trigger with practiced ease. In the silence that follows, even the rain seems to pause, as if nature itself holds its breath before witnessing murder in a sacred space. "No!" Juliet's scream echoes through the cathedral like a prayer torn from her soul. She lunges forward just as Tybalt's finger begins to squeeze, her body moving faster than conscious thought as maternal instinct overrides personal safety. The gunshot explodes through the ancient space like thunder, its violence amplifying off stone walls built to contain human suffering, but the bullet finds an unexpected target. Mercutio Valenti, who has been tracking Romeo through Manhattan's maze of surveillance cameras and corporate informants, appears at the chapel entrance just as Tybalt fires. The volatile mixture of cocaine and adrenaline in his system has sharpened his reflexes to inhuman levels, and he throws himself forward in a desperate attempt to shield his friend from assassination. The impact spins Mercutio around like a rag doll, his expensive suit blooming with crimson as he crashes into a marble pillar carved with images of angels and demons locked in eternal combat. Blood spatters across stone saints who have witnessed countless human tragedies, adding fresh stains to surfaces already darkened by centuries of mortal suffering. "Mercutio!" Romeo's anguished cry fills the cathedral as he rushes to his friend's side. The young Italian lies crumpled against the pillar, his designer clothes ruined by spreading blood while his cocaine-dilated pupils struggle to focus on Romeo's face. "A plague on both your houses?" Mercutio whispers, his voice weak but still carrying traces of his characteristic dark humor. "I die for your family's stupidity, Romeo. And mine wasn't much smarter. The coke made me brave but not bulletproof." Tybalt stares at the unexpected carnage, his weapon still smoking in his trembling hand. The plan had been simple. Eliminate the Montague threat. Secure his cousin's loyalty. Preserve the family merger. Instead, he has committed murder in a cathedral, with his own cousin as witness to a crime that will destroy everything he sought to protect. The cathedral's ancient stones absorb Mercutio's final breath like a sponge soaking up wine, his life ebbing away against marble pillars that have witnessed countless deaths across 5 centuries. His designer suit, tailored in Milan's finest shops, now serves as a crimson shroud, while his gold jewelry catches the flickering candlelight, like scattered stars against a darkening sky. The cocaine in his bloodstream had promised immortality, but even artificial courage cannot deflect lead bullets fired at close range. Romeo cradles his friend's lifeless body, his expensive tuxedo staining with blood that will never wash clean. Around them, the cathedral's Gothic arches seem to close in like the walls of a tomb, while stained glass saints observe this modern tragedy with expressions of eternal sorrow. The votive candles burn lower, their wax tears pooling on brass holders worn smooth by generations of desperate prayers. "He died because of me," Romeo whispers, his voice breaking with grief and rage that builds like pressure in a sealed vessel. "Mercutio came here to protect me from consequences he couldn't understand, and now he's gone because your family cannot distinguish between love and warfare." Tybalt stands frozen in the chapel entrance, his smoking weapon still extended toward targets that no longer matter. The perfect crime has become a perfect disaster, witnessed by the one person whose silence he desperately needs. Juliet stares at her cousin with horror and recognition, seeing clearly for the first time the monster that corporate hatred has created within her own bloodline. "This was never supposed to happen," Tybalt mutters, though his words sound hollow even to his own ears. Montague was the target, not some random Italian pretty boy with a drug habit. The plan was simple: eliminate the threat, preserve the merger, protect the family. The storm outside intensifies, sending sheets of rain against windows that have weathered centuries of New York's fury. Lightning illuminates the cathedral's interior in stark black and white, while thunder rolls across Manhattan like the footsteps of angry gods. The city beyond continues its eternal dance of ambition and desire, unaware that murder has been committed in one of its most sacred spaces. Romeo gently closes Mercutio's eyes, his fingers trembling with grief that rapidly transforms into something far more dangerous. The cocaine residue on his friend's lips tells the story of a young man who sought artificial courage to face real danger, only to discover that some battles cannot be won through chemistry or bravado. Mercutio's death demands justice, and in the cathedral's sacred silence, Romeo feels the ancient call for blood vengeance that transcends legal systems and corporate protocols. "You killed him," Romeo states, rising slowly from his friend's corpse with movements that suggest barely controlled violence. "You murdered an innocent man because your family's hatred has poisoned your soul beyond recognition or redemption." Tybalt backs toward the cathedral's nave, his weapon wavering as he realizes the magnitude of his miscalculation. Romeo's grief has transformed him from lovesick young executive into something primal and dangerous, a predator driven by loss that cannot be calculated in dollars or Deutschemarks. The merger, the engagement, even family loyalty pale beside the immediate need for retribution. "He wasn't innocent," Tybalt protests, his voice echoing off stone walls built to contain human suffering. "Mercutio was Montague trash, a cocaine addict who served your family's interests. His death cleans the streets of one more parasite feeding off Manhattan's corruption." The insult strikes Romeo like a physical blow, shattering the last restraints that civilization and breeding have placed on his rage. Mercutio had been more than a friend. He was the bridge between old money and new, the one person who could navigate both worlds with equal charm and authenticity. His death represents the final casualty in a war that has already claimed too many innocent victims. Juliet watches in growing horror as the two men circle each other like predators in the cathedral's central aisle, their conflict transforming sacred space into an arena where ancient hatreds demand fresh blood. The engagement ring on her finger catches the candlelight, its diamonds reflecting fractured rainbows that seem to mock the shattered dreams surrounding them. "Stop!" she pleads, her voice carrying across the vast space like a prayer torn from her soul. Mercutio is dead. More violence cannot restore him to life or undo this tragedy. "Tybalt, put down the gun." "Romeo, please don't let grief drive you to actions that will destroy everything we've fought to preserve." But her words cannot penetrate the red haze that clouds Romeo's vision, nor can they reach the desperate panic driving Tybalt toward increasingly violent solutions. Both men have passed the point where reason can influence action, where love might triumph over the ancient cycle of vengeance that has consumed their families for decades. Romeo lunges forward with the fluid grace of someone trained in martial arts by the best instructors Manhattan money can buy. His attack catches Tybalt off guard, sending the gun skittering across marble floors toward the altar where countless couples have pledged eternal love. The weapon comes to rest at the base of a crucifix carved from Italian marble, its chrome surface reflecting the dying light of votive candles like a promise of damnation. The two men grapple across the cathedral's marble floors like medieval knights stripped of armor and honor, their expensive suits tearing as they crash into wooden pews carved by craftsmen who died centuries before Wall Street existed. Romeo's grief-fueled rage grants him superhuman strength, while Tybalt's desperation to escape the consequences of murder drives him toward increasingly violent solutions. Their struggle echoes off Gothic arches, like the sound of civilization collapsing into primitive chaos. Tybalt breaks free and scrambles toward the fallen weapon, his Italian leather shoes slipping on blood-slicked marble as he stretches desperate fingers toward salvation. But Romeo reaches him first, tackling his enemy against the altar, where countless couples have pledged eternal love. The irony cuts deeply. In this sacred space meant to sanctify human union, two young men destroy each other over corporate hatred that neither truly understands. "This ends now," Romeo snarls, his hands closing around Tybalt's throat with the precision of someone trained in corporate warfare but driven by primal justice. "Mercutio's blood demands payment, and your family's account is overdue." The cathedral's stained glass windows explode with lightning, their jeweled surfaces fracturing the storm's fury into rainbow fragments that dance across the combatants like benedictions from an angry heaven. Thunder rolls through the sacred space like the voice of God passing judgment on human folly, while rain pounds against ancient stones that have absorbed centuries of violence and redemption. Tybalt's face purples as oxygen fails to reach his brain, his pale eyes bulging with the recognition that death has finally caught up with his lifetime of violence and intimidation. The gun lies just inches from his outstretched fingers, its chrome surface reflecting the cathedral's dying candles like a promise of power that will remain forever unfulfilled. "Romeo, stop!" Juliet's scream pierces the cathedral's chaos like a prayer torn from her soul. "This isn't justice, it's murder! You're becoming exactly what you claim to despise." Her words penetrate the red haze, clouding Romeo's vision, causing his grip to loosen just enough for Tybalt to gasp precious air into his starving lungs. In that moment of hesitation, both men recognize the precipice they've approached. The point where love transforms into hate, where justice becomes vengeance, where human beings reduce themselves to animals fighting over territory and pride. But Tybalt's survival instincts override any hope of redemption. As Romeo's grip relaxes, he rolls desperately toward the fallen weapon, his fingers closing around its pearl handle with the satisfaction of someone claiming divine intervention. The gun rises toward Romeo's chest with mechanical precision, its barrel seeking the heart that dared to love across family lines. "Die, Montague!" Tybalt gasps, his voice hoarse from near strangulation. "Die for your family's sins." The gunshot explodes through the cathedral like the crack of doom, its violence amplifying off stone walls built to contain human suffering. But in the split second before Tybalt's finger completes its deadly arc, Romeo's corporate-trained reflexes assert themselves with lethal efficiency. His hand closes around the heavy brass candlestick that has illuminated prayers for 5 centuries, bringing it down with crushing force against his enemy's skull. The sound of impact echoes through the sacred space, like a judge's gavel announcing final sentence. Tybalt's body goes limp, his weapon clattering across marble floors as his pale eyes fix on infinity with the expression of someone finally understanding the true price of hatred. Blood pools beneath his silver hair, mixing with Mercutio's crimson tribute to create an abstract painting of violence on floors consecrated to peace. Romeo stares at the carnage he has created, the brass candlestick still clutched in his trembling hands, like some primitive weapon reclaimed from civilization's veneer. 2 bodies lie before the altar, where couples pledge eternal love. Their designer clothes ruined by blood that will never wash clean from marble surfaces or human memory. "What have I done?" Romeo whispers, his voice breaking with the recognition that grief has transformed him into everything he once despised. "I came here seeking love, and left 2 men dead on consecrated ground." Juliet approaches slowly, her evening dress rustling like autumn leaves as she navigates the carnage that has destroyed every hope for their future together. The engagement ring on her finger catches the flickering candlelight, its diamonds reflecting fractured rainbows that seem to mock the shattered dreams surrounding them. "The police will come," she observes with deadly calm, her voice carrying the practical knowledge of someone raised in Manhattan's upper echelons. "Corporate security cameras monitor every street corner, every building entrance. They'll trace your movements here, find witnesses who saw you enter, discover evidence that will convict you of double homicide." Outside the cathedral, sirens begin their mournful wail through Manhattan's concrete canyons, growing closer with each passing moment. Someone has reported the gunshots, triggering an emergency response that will arrive too late to prevent tragedy but soon enough to demand justice. The storm continues its assault on the city's glass and steel monuments, as if nature itself mourns the violence that has desecrated this sacred space. Romeo drops the candlestick, its brass surface stained with blood and moral compromise. The sound echoes through the cathedral like a death knell, marking the end of innocence and the beginning of consequences that will reshape both families forever. The sirens crescendo through Manhattan's rain-soaked streets like a modern chorus of the damned, their wailing voices bouncing between glass towers that pierce the storm-darkened sky. Police cruisers navigate flooding intersections while emergency vehicles converge on the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, their red and blue strobes painting the Gothic stones in colors of justice and retribution. The sanctuary that promised refuge has become a crime scene that will dominate tomorrow's headlines across every major newspaper in America. "You have to run," Juliet whispers urgently, her manicured hands trembling as she grabs Romeo's blood-stained shirt. "My father employs former CIA operatives, federal judges, prosecutors who owe him favors stretching back decades. Once they identify you as the killer, every resource of the American justice system will focus on your destruction." Romeo stares at the 2 corpses sprawled before the altar, their expensive suits now serving as shrouds for dreams that will never see fulfillment. Mercutio's cocaine-dilated eyes reflect the cathedral's dying candles like stars extinguished by violence, while Tybalt's pale features wear the expression of someone who finally understood the true cost of hatred just moments too late. "I can't run from this," Romeo replies, his voice hollow with the recognition that love has transformed him into a killer. "These hands took 2 lives in a house of God. No amount of money or family influence can wash away that sin or the consequences it demands." The cathedral's ancient stones seem to press down upon them with the weight of 5 centuries accumulated guilt, while stained glass saints observe this modern tragedy with expressions of eternal sorrow. Outside, the October storm intensifies its assault on the city, sending sheets of rain against windows that have weathered countless New York seasons. Lightning illuminates the sacred space in stark black and white, while thunder rolls across Manhattan like the footsteps of angry gods demanding justice for desecrated ground. Juliet's practical mind, sharpened by years of corporate training and survival in Manhattan's upper echelons, begins calculating possibilities with desperate efficiency. The Montague family maintains safe houses in 12 countries, private jets fueled and ready for emergency departure. Swiss banks hold accounts that could finance a lifetime in exile. You could disappear completely, become someone else entirely, and leave you to face the consequences alone? Romeo's question cuts through the cathedral's oppressive silence like a blade through silk. Your cousin lies dead by my hand, killed in your presence. They'll assume conspiracy, demand explanations you cannot provide without destroying yourself. The sirens grow louder, their mechanical voices echoing off the cathedral's flying buttresses and Gothic arches like modern psalms of accountability. Through the ancient windows, red and blue strobes begin to paint the sacred interior in colors of law enforcement and inevitable justice. Soon, the sanctuary will fill with detectives, forensic specialists, and photographers who will reduce this tragedy to evidence cataloged in manila folders. Then we'll face it together, Juliet declares with sudden fierce determination, her dark eyes reflecting the cathedral's candlelight like stars burning through storm clouds. If running means separation, then I choose to stand beside you whatever comes. Let them prosecute us both for loving across family lines. Perhaps our trial will finally expose the poisonous hatred that created this tragedy. Romeo's heart contracts at her offer, recognizing the impossible courage required to sacrifice everything for a love that began less than 24 hours ago. Yet rational thought intrudes like cold water on fever dreams, reminding him that her destruction would serve no purpose beyond adding another casualty to this senseless war. Your sacrifice would be meaningless, he whispers, framing her face with hands still stained by Tybalt's blood. Your father will claim coercion, temporary insanity caused by Montague manipulation. The engagement to Paris will proceed on schedule. Your life will continue according to predetermined plan. My death in prison will be the price demanded for your freedom. Outside, car doors slam with military precision, while tactical teams position themselves around the cathedral's multiple entrances. The NYPD's elite units move with practiced efficiency, their body armor and assault rifles reflecting the storm's lightning, like instruments of technological judgment. Yet even their sophisticated equipment cannot penetrate the ancient sanctuary where love and death have become inextricably intertwined. Juliet removes the engagement ring from her finger, its diamonds catching the candlelight one final time before she places it on Tybalt's chest like a funeral offering. Let them find this with his body, she says, her voice carrying the weight of absolute decision. Let my father understand that some prices are too high to pay, some mergers too costly to consummate. The gesture strikes Romeo like a physical blow, its symbolic weight crushing any remaining hope that their love might survive the forces arrayed against it. The ring's presence on Tybalt's corpse will be interpreted as evidence of conspiracy, proof that the Capulet merger was sabotaged by enemies willing to commit murder for market advantage. Heavy boots echo through the cathedral's nave as police teams breach the main entrance, their tactical lights cutting through sacred darkness like searchlights seeking fugitives. Commands barked in official voices bounce off Gothic arches that have heard countless confessions and absolutions, adding another layer to the human drama that these stones have absorbed across 5 centuries. Go, Juliet whispers, pushing Romeo toward a side chapel that leads to passages built when this cathedral served as sanctuary for political refugees. The old smuggling tunnels connect to the subway system. You can reach Grand Central before they establish a perimeter. Their final kiss tastes of tears and blood, desperation and love so pure it seems capable of transcending even death itself. In that moment of perfect connection, the cathedral's oppressive weight lifts slightly, as if divine forces recognize the authenticity of emotion that refuses to be governed by logic or law. 3 weeks after the cathedral massacre, Manhattan's financial district buzzes with the electricity of scandal barely contained by corporate lawyers and federal investigations. The deaths of Tybalt, Capulet, and Mercutio Valenti have sent shockwaves through Wall Street's elite circles, triggering SEC inquiries, congressional hearings, and media speculation that threatens to expose the rotten foundations underlying America's most prestigious investment houses. Romeo Montague exists as a ghost haunting the city's shadows, his identity erased from official records, while federal marshals coordinate the largest manhunt in New York's financial history. The penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park stands empty, its windows dark while police surveillance teams monitor every entrance and communication line. His trust fund accounts have been frozen, his credit cards canceled, his very existence reduced to whatever cash Benvolio can smuggle through intermediaries and dead drops. The abandoned subway tunnels beneath Morningside Heights provide temporary sanctuary, their concrete passages echoing with the distant rumble of trains carrying commuters, who remain blissfully unaware that a fugitive murderer shelters just yards below their feet. Romeo has transformed from privileged heir into urban phantom, his designer suits replaced by thrift store clothing that helps him blend into the city's anonymous masses. Benvolio arrives at their pre-arranged meeting point carrying newspapers that chronicle the aftermath of that blood-soaked October night. The headlines scream across every major publication. Capulet here slain in Cathedral Massacre. Wall Street blood feud claims third generation. Federal investigation expands into organized crime connections. Each article adds another layer to a scene, the mythology transforming private tragedy into public entertainment. The grand jury convenes next week, Benvolio reports, his conservative features creased with worry as he spreads the financial pages across a makeshift table constructed from discarded lumber and milk crates. Father's lawyers believe they'll indict you for double homicide, conspiracy to manipulate securities, and violation of federal racketeering statutes. The prosecution claims this was a coordinated attack designed to disrupt the Capulet-Escalus merger. Romeo barely processes his cousin's words, his mind consumed by memories of Juliet's face illuminated by cathedral candlelight, her voice whispering promises that now seem as distant as childhood dreams. The woman he loves remains trapped within the Capulet fortress, surrounded by security teams and family members who blame the Montague name for every tragedy that has befallen their dynasty. What news of Juliet? Romeo asks, his voice hoarse from weeks of sleeping in subway tunnels and abandoned buildings. The newspapers mention her only in connection with the engagement announcement, as if she's become invisible except as Paris Escalus's intended bride. Benvolio's expression darkens with information he's reluctant to share. The wedding has been accelerated. Originally scheduled for spring, it will now take place this Saturday at St. Patrick's Cathedral. Augustus claims the ceremony will demonstrate that terrorism cannot intimidate legitimate business, that love conquers even the most coordinated attacks against family stability. The words hit Romeo like physical blows, each syllable confirming his worst fears about the forces that have separated them. Juliet will be married to a man she doesn't love, bound by legal contracts that will make her the property of another financial dynasty. Their brief moment of perfect connection becomes nothing more than a romantic fantasy crushed by the brutal realities of corporate warfare. Outside the tunnel entrance, the city continues its eternal dance of ambition and desire. Wall Street's towers pierce the November sky like crystal daggers, their surfaces reflecting the pale sun that struggles through winter clouds. Yellow taxis navigate between limousines while street vendors sell newspapers, announcing the latest corporate mergers and federal investigations, all part of Manhattan's endless cycle of creation and destruction. There's more, Benvolio continues reluctantly. The FBI has connected Mercutio's death to a larger investigation of cocaine trafficking through legitimate investment houses. They believe the Italian families have been laundering drug money through municipal bond offerings and foreign exchange transactions. Your association with him makes you a target for organized crime charges that carry life sentences. Romeo laughs bitterly, the sound echoing off concrete walls that have absorbed decades of urban decay and human desperation. So, I'm simultaneously a corporate terrorist and a drug dealer? Perhaps they'll add treason and tax evasion to complete the fiction they're constructing around my identity. The irony cuts deeply. He has become everything his privileged upbringing was designed to prevent. The trust fund baby who never wanted for material comfort now exists as society's ultimate outcast, pursued by law enforcement and abandoned by the social network that once defined his identity. Yet even as external pressures mount toward crushing intensity, his heart remains focused on one impossible goal: finding some way to reach Juliet before she becomes another man's wife. Footsteps echo through the tunnel system, their rhythm suggesting purpose rather than chance. Benvolio's hand moves instinctively toward the concealed weapon that all family members carry since the Cathedral massacre, while Romeo presses deeper into shadows that have sheltered countless fugitives throughout New York's violent history. The footsteps resolve into a figure that materializes from the tunnel's darkness like a specter conjured by desperation itself. Friar Lawrence Abernathy emerges into the pale light cast by Romeo's battery-powered lantern, his clerical collar gleaming white against the black wool of his winter coat. At 63, the Episcopal priest has spent 4 decades ministering to Manhattan's elite, hearing confessions that could topple governments and absolving sins that would make lesser mortals weep for humanity's future. "Romeo, my son," the priest whispers, his cultured voice carrying the weight of terrible knowledge. "I bring news that will either damn you completely or offer the slimmest hope of salvation." Friar Lawrence has served as spiritual advisor to both the Montague and Capulet families, one of the few individuals trusted by both dynasties despite their murderous hatred. His private chapel in the Cathedral of St. John the Divine has witnessed countless confessions from Wall Street's most powerful figures, their sins absolved behind carved wooden screens that have protected secrets worth more than most nations' gross domestic products. "Speak quickly, Father," Romeo urges, his eyes scanning the tunnel entrances for signs of federal agents or family enforcers. "Every moment I remain in this city increases the danger for anyone who helps me." The priest settles onto a discarded subway seat, his movements careful and deliberate as he prepares to share intelligence gathered through networks that predate the American Republic itself. "Juliet came to me yesterday evening," he reveals, his voice carrying the gravity of someone who has just heard the most dangerous confession of his career. "She seeks annulment of her engagement, claiming coercion and demanding sanctuary within church law." Benvolio shifts nervously, his conservative instincts sensing the legal and political implications of such a request. "The Capulet family donated $20 million to cathedral restoration last year alone," he observes. "They'll view any interference with the wedding as betrayal worthy of violent retribution." "Indeed," Friar Lawrence agrees, his weathered hands folding across his lap like a man preparing for crucifixion. "Augustus Capulet controls enough political influence to have me excommunicated, defrocked, and possibly charged with conspiracy. Yet sometimes, the spiritual obligations supersede temporal concerns, even when the consequences promise to be catastrophic." Through the tunnel's ventilation grates, the distant sounds of the city filter down like whispered prayers from a world that continues spinning despite their personal apocalypse. Car horns blend with construction noise while helicopter rotors chop through November air that carries the first hints of winter. Somewhere above them, Juliet prepares for a wedding that will seal her fate with all the finality of a signed death warrant. "What does she propose?" Romeo asks, though his heart pounds with the recognition that any plan involving Juliet's direct participation will exponentially increase the dangers already threatening both their lives. Friar Lawrence withdraws a small vial from his coat pocket, its crystal surface catching the lantern light like a promise of either salvation or damnation. "Medical science has advanced remarkably in recent decades," he explains, his voice carrying the weight of knowledge that could destroy reputations built over generations. "Certain pharmaceutical compounds can simulate death so completely that even trained physicians cannot detect signs of life." The implications hit Romeo like lightning, illuminating a dark landscape. "You're suggesting she fake her own death to escape the marriage?" Saturday morning, before the ceremony, the priest confirms, his words falling between them like stones into still water. "She'll take this compound, fall into a catatonic state that mimics death perfectly. The family will arrange immediate burial in their private mausoleum, following traditions that date back to medieval Europe. Sunday night, when the drug's effects wear off, she'll awaken to find you waiting with transportation to whatever sanctuary you've chosen." Benvolio's practical mind immediately identifies the countless ways such a plan could fail catastrophically. "The risks are enormous," he protests, his conservative nature recoiling from schemes that require perfect timing and impossible luck. "If the dosage proves incorrect, if the timing goes wrong, if family security discovers the deception, any single variable could transform this rescue into double murder." Outside the tunnel system, the November afternoon fades toward evening as Manhattan's towers begin lighting their windows like stars in a concrete galaxy. Rush hour traffic creates rivers of yellow light flowing between glass monuments to capitalism, while pedestrians hurry towards subway entrances that will carry them away from the financial district's intense pressures. The city pulses with its eternal rhythm of ambition and desire, indifferent to the human drama unfolding in its underground arteries. The alternative is watching her marry Paris Escalus while federal agents prepare your execution, Friar Lawrence observes with brutal honesty. This plan offers the only path I can envision toward any future that doesn't end in tragedy for both families. Romeo takes the vial, its weight seeming disproportionate to its size, as he contemplates the crystalline substance that represents their last hope for happiness. The pharmaceutical compound promises either resurrection or damnation, with no middle ground between perfect success and absolute catastrophe. How do I reach her to coordinate the timing? Romeo asks, his mind already calculating the surveillance systems, security protocols, and federal manhunts that stand between him and the woman he loves. She'll be at the Capulet family chapel tomorrow evening for final wedding preparations, the priest explains, his voice heavy with the knowledge that he's orchestrating events that could destroy everything he's spent a lifetime building. The old service tunnels connect directly to the cathedral's basement levels, built during Prohibition to transport wine for communion services. You can reach her without exposing yourself to street-level surveillance. The plan crystallizes in Romeo's mind with terrifying clarity, each step requiring precision that would challenge even the most sophisticated military operations. Yet, love has transformed him from privileged heir into desperate soldier, willing to risk everything for one final chance at the happiness that seemed so close just weeks ago. Saturday evening arrives with the cruel indifference of winter settling over Manhattan's glass and steel monuments to human ambition. The Capulet family mausoleum, carved from Italian marble and nestled within Woodlawn Cemetery's most exclusive section, stands like a monument to dynastic wealth that transcends even death itself. Here, 5 generations of financial royalty rest in climate-controlled splendor, their names etched in gold lettering that catches the pale light of November's early sunset. Romeo navigates the cemetery's winding paths like a ghost haunting his own funeral, his breath forming crystalline clouds in air so cold it seems to freeze his very soul. The pharmaceutical vial rests empty in his pocket, its purpose fulfilled according to Friar Lawrence's desperate plan. Yet something has gone catastrophically wrong. Juliet lies motionless in her glass coffin, her beauty preserved like a medieval saint, while her chest remains terrifyingly still. The family crypt opens like the mouth of hell itself, its bronze doors engraved with scenes from Dante's Inferno that seem to mock the tragedy unfolding within. Electric candles cast dancing shadows across marble walls lined with the earthly remains of Manhattan's most ruthless financial dynasty. Each tomb bears testament to lives lived in pursuit of profit. Yet none of their accumulated wealth can purchase another breath for the young woman who chose love over luxury. "My Juliet," Romeo whispers, his voice echoing off stone surfaces that have absorbed 5 generations of grief and loss. "I arrived too late, didn't I? The drug proved too strong, or perhaps your heart simply couldn't bear the weight of our impossible love." He approaches the coffin where she lies arranged like a sleeping princess from childhood fairy tales, her wedding dress transformed into burial shroud, while white roses frame her perfect features. The Capulet family spared no expense in preparing their daughter for eternity, surrounding her with symbols of purity that seemed to mock the violence and hatred that consumed both their houses. Outside the mausoleum, the November wind howls through bare tree branches like voices of the damned, while distant traffic creates a percussion of urban life continuing despite personal apocalypse. The city pulses with its eternal rhythm of ambition and desire, indifferent to the human drama reaching its inevitable conclusion in this marble sanctuary dedicated to death and memory. Romeo withdraws the second vial from his coat, its contents promising release from a world where love cannot survive the forces arrayed against it. The compound, acquired through connections that stretch into Manhattan's darkest pharmaceutical underground, offers painless passage from the brutality of existence into whatever peace awaits beyond human suffering. "They say that death is the ultimate merger," Romeo observes, his words addressed to Juliet's still form as much as to the corporate titans whose bones rest in surrounding tombs. 2 souls joining their assets permanently, beyond the reach of federal regulators or family interference. Perhaps in whatever realm follows this one, we'll find the freedom that proved impossible here. The liquid burns like liquid fire as it slides down his throat, its chemical composition promising swift transformation from consciousness into eternal sleep. Romeo positions himself beside Juliet's coffin, his hand finding hers despite the glass barrier that separates them, even in death. The pharmaceutical cocktail begins its deadly work, slowing his heartbeat while his vision blurs toward merciful darkness. "I take thee at thy word," he whispers, his voice growing weaker as the drug claims dominion over his circulatory system. "Call me but love, and I'll be new baptized. Henceforth, I never will be Romeo Montague." The mausoleum's silence deepens as Romeo's breathing becomes shallow, then stops entirely. His elegant features relax into an expression of profound peace, as if death has finally provided the sanctuary that life consistently denied. The two young lovers rest side by side, separated by glass and circumstance but united in their refusal to accept a world where hatred proves stronger than love. Yet fate reserves one final, cruel revelation for this modern tragedy. As Romeo's life ebbs away, Juliet's eyes flutter open like butterflies emerging from chrysalis. The pharmaceutical compound has run its prescribed course, returning her to consciousness just moments too late to prevent the catastrophe her desperate plan has created. "Romeo," she whispers, her voice hoarse from chemical sleep as she discovers her love's lifeless form sprawled beside her coffin. "My Romeo, what hast thou done?" The empty vial tells the story her awakening heart cannot bear to accept. While she slept in artificial death, he chose genuine suicide rather than face existence without her presence. The plan that promised salvation has delivered only deeper tragedy, claiming the very life it sought to preserve. "Then I'll be brief," Juliet declares, her voice carrying the steel resolve inherited from 5 generations of financial warriors. "O happy dagger, this is thy sheath. There rust, and let me die." She takes Romeo's hand in hers, feeling the warmth fading from fingers that had touched her heart with promises of impossible love. The ornamental letter opener from her father's desk proves sharp enough for her final purpose, its blade finding her heart with the same precision that built the Capulet fortune through calculated risk and unwavering determination. As dawn breaks over Manhattan's concrete canyons, both families discover the price their hatred has demanded. Augustus Capulet and Richard Montague stand before their children's bodies, their corporate warfare finally revealed as the pointless destruction it always represented. The merger announcements, federal investigations, and stock manipulations pale beside the human cost of grudges nursed across 3 generations. "See what a scourge is laid upon your hate," Friar Lawrence intones, his voice carrying the weight of divine judgment as police sirens wail through the cemetery's morning stillness. "That heaven finds means to kill your joys with love. And I, for winking at your discords, have lost a brace of kinsmen. All are punished." The feuding dynasties bury their children side by side, their joint memorial becoming Manhattan's most visited monument to love triumphing over institutional hatred. The Capulet-Escalus merger dissolves in scandal, while federal investigations expose corruption that reshapes America's financial landscape forever. Yet from the ashes of their corporate empires, something beautiful emerges, recognition that some values transcend profit margins, that human connection matters more than market dominance. Romeo and Juliet sleep eternally in marble peace, their love story becoming legend whispered in trading floors and boardrooms where their families once waged war. The city continues its dance of ambition and desire, but now carries within its concrete heart the memory of 2 young souls who chose love over loyalty, proving that even in America's most ruthless arena, romance can challenge the forces that seem to control human destiny.